I still go back to quarantine, and I hear myself saying that, like, this is, the unprecedented is the word everyone keeps using.
Yeah.
We're never going to get this again. You should really pace yourself, because after that 2 weeks passed and we were still in the same spot, it's like, okay, we're going to be here for a little bit. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. And so pacing yourself through, yes, one day bled into the other, where you're getting up or you're going to bed and you don't know what day it is and you're working the whole time, where it became really difficult to pause and take those breaks. And the next thing you know, we've blended into exactly what you just said of our work. And I feel like it had, where it could have been a time of reset. And I think some people did that. I think most of us didn't. And so now we're finding ourselves, just as you described, or even more wrapped up into our work. So taking your time, your trip in the RV with your family, Ash, how can we apply what you learned in that year to now, as we're starting to officially come out of quarantine and go back into the workplace, and possibly try to add more boundaries in, or if we created any in quarantine, how can we keep them? Like, what does that, almost like rediscovering our post-quarantine self, look like?
No, that's a great question. I'll share an example of what happened to us at the beginning of our trip. We were so used to having such a high-paced life, a fast-paced life at home, prior to the trip. And, we'd have sports, we'd have activities, we'd have our own, social commitments, just all of the things that wrap up in a young family's life. And what we ended up doing, mistakenly, was the first part of our trip, we were on an aggressive clip of long bucket list, gotta be in this many places in this many days, and we found ourselves chasing. We basically took our home life and we took it on the road.
Yeah.
And we took the intensity of it on the road. And candidly, the first few months of our trip were a little bit difficult because, they were a lot bit difficult because we were all just running fast. It's funny, when Beth and I were married without kids, we swore that we would never become those parents that showed up at Disney World at 6:45 in the morning and left at midnight. And all of a sudden, we were those parents, and in a different place, where we had a bucket list a mile long. And what we learned from it, and this is my carry forward on pandemic conditions, was there is freedom and liberty in saying no. There is freedom and liberty in setting boundaries. There was freedom and liberty in for us, it was spending more time in less places and actually reflecting and enjoying on the true purpose of what that trip was all about for us.
Yeah. Wow.
One of the things I heard at the beginning of pandemic was, a little bit of unease and, weird feeling of, I really need to be in Paris right now. I really need to be in New York or Chicago or wherever in the world that I travel for work. And it was strange because it really kind of got people off kilter that were used to in their professional life, or maybe their intensity of, my kid's involved in 4 different things and now I'm grounded completely.
Yep.
And my hope on the carry forward is we take stock in slowing down. We take stock in being selective and discerning about, what is it that we're going to take on? What is it that we're going to be involved in as a family? What is it that we're going to be involved in as professionals, or perhaps as a married couple, or, fill in any of the criteria of that. One of the big lessons, I believe, in pandemic was slow down. If you didn't slow down during pandemic conditions and actually have an opportunity to reflect, you missed an opportunity. You missed a big one. And in a weird way, it was a little bit of a gift where we didn't have a choice.
Yep.
We just didn't have a choice.
Yeah. What about the things that you didn't add back in? So when we were in our conversation with Brandon, he asked you the same question. And one of the things that you noted was the sheer drive that you were having to make from your home to the various offices that you would go and work with, and it was like an hour one way. So that's 2 hours out of your day, 10 hours a week. What are some other things that when you came back from this trip, that you were like, nope, not going to do that anymore?
It was interesting. That was probably the biggest one. We still today feel the tension of the calendar, and again, even though pandemic conditions slowed us down on calendar bookings, we just had to be very thoughtful and mindful of that. I don't do a large number of volunteer type things and volunteer type activities, and purposely I've limited it to a very, very small number where I can invest time, but I can invest time deeply, versus there was a time in my career, and it wasn't that long ago, that I'd invest in several things and try to touch all of them and inevitably not be good or be mediocre at most of them.